My name is Sparsh Gupta and I am a first year student at SGBS. We are honored to have with us Miss Archana Garodia Gupta, author of History of India and Women Who Ruled India, and Dr. Pankaj Gupta sir, who has 30 years of leadership experience in management education and consulting, and Miss Shruti Garodia ma'am. She is also a best-selling author in Indian history. Thank you so much for being here today. I'll move between all of three of you so that it feels like a shared conversation. First of all, I would like to begin by understanding how ideas are shaped and communicated. So, my first question is to Archana, ma'am. Ma'am, as a historian, how do you balance storytelling with the historical accuracy when writing for a wider audience?
It's a very interesting question, and today, especially when there are so many versions of history being put forward, how do you ensure that the story you're telling is accurate? So the first thing is we mustn't fall in love with the story to the exclusion of facts. It is important to look at actual history, and your story has to be built on the basis of that facts and not on the basis what you would like to believe. What is a fact? A lot of people say, is there any truth in history? After all, it's somebody's point of view. How do you know that it is true? So, for most historians, this is a very important question. You have to, where do we get facts in history? You get it from accounts written at that time about what happened. You get it from archaeology. You get it from things like coins. You get it from now increasingly genetics. You can get it from linguistic analysis. There are many sources to figure out what happened. And then you have to follow the proper scientific method, and you have to, what you say, triangulate. You have to see whether the story you're getting from one source matches the story you're getting from the second source, matches what you're getting from the third source. And the more sources you have and the more you match the stories, the more accurate your history facts will be. So, yes, stories can be very attractive, but it is very important, especially if you are writing non-fiction, to be as sincere and accurate in your analysis of the fact that you can be. If you're in doubt, you should mention you're in doubt. If you're writing fiction, maybe you can extrapolate some things, but again, I think you shouldn't lie. So that is a dharma of a historian.
Thank you, ma'am. This balance genuinely feels so special in today's fast content world. Uh, Listening to that made me realize how different people discover what truly matters to them. So, my second question is to you, ma'am. You began your journey in engineering and quantitative finance and worked in banking across New York and London. So, what moment made you realize that history and storytelling mattered to you more than that corporate world?
Thanks for the question. So I think that's something that many people I know of a certain age have to grapple with this question, because there's a certain set path that people follow. You go to school, then you often do an MBA, or you do your MBBS, or you do engineering or something like that. And then you go into what we call either a corporate job or a startup job, right? But then I think people have many different paths to them. So I don't think you have to always choose. But normally you cannot do everything together. So some people, I've always been interested in writing. I've always wanted to be an author. I think the first time I said I wanted to write was I was 7 years old. And I was always very interested in history as well as fiction. But my path of life was just the normal path. And at one point, when I got the opportunity to write these books, I was able to explore it in great detail. And that was very fortunate, and I was very happy to do it. And I realized I enjoyed it. And but what was nice was I'd already been about 15 years into my corporate career that time. So what I would say is a little bit different than what other people would say, which is that you should always follow your passion. I think I'm a bit more pragmatic in life, and I'm quite happy that I have, let's say, a technical career beforehand. because it's allowed me to have skills which are still marketable. I can still do consulting. I don't have to worry that, okay, I'm writing, you want to write a book or you want to do a creative pursuit, but how are you going to pay the bills? You know? So, in some cases, it's fine if you have a path. In other cases, you can try and explore at the same time and then make a choice. So I think all paths are equally valid. And for me, it just happened that I always had this multifaceted interest. And I was, once it came out, and I'd had quite a decent run of my corporate career. So I was able to switch into doing this on a more full-time basis. However, I still work in finance for a few months of every year. So, yeah.
That was such an inspiring shift. Thank you for sharing that, ma'am. So my third question is to you. From your long journey of learning and teaching, what is that one deep value from Indian philosophy that we often talk about, but as a society and especially as students, we are forgetting to live it by?
Thank you, Sparshi, for asking this question. And I would like to say that we have been focusing too much on the avidya side. Avidya means, we are saying that, okay, we need to study accounting, finance, blockchain, big data, those kind of a thing, which is making me learning for living. As she said, that we need to have, something to pay our bills and like that. That is fine. But of late, there has been too much focus on that aspect. So the other part of the life is, which is what we call is a vidya. So what we say like a sa vidyata vimukta hai, the knowledge which liberates you. The what we can say the learning for life, that has taken quite a back seat, to which include getting to know your own self. You are knowing and understanding the entire world, what it is, but we don't look into our own side, that who am I, what is my passion, what is my desires, why I am the way I am that way. If I am desiring about certain goals, then what is the root cause there? Why I am having certain goals? What is my swabhav and swadharma? And what is my passion? What kind of abilities I have? And what kind of faith I have within? So I believe this part, which is also rooted very much in our Indian knowledge system, this is what I believe is very, very important. And if people are having a level of self-awareness and they are choosing the right goals, then they need not to do so much of hard work. Everything will become more like a hard play. So for such kind of people, there is no need for any work-life balance, because whatever they do is a celebration. So it is not an obligation that you have to be there, so many hours of work you have to do, but everything is a celebration, and that will have a much better outcome for the company, for the country, and as well as for themselves also. So this is one aspect I would like to bring in here, element of self-awareness, understanding self, and the use of the ancient wisdom in curriculum.
That really made me pause and reflect, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I would like to ask you, building on this idea of reflection, I want to ask something personal. Did researching India's past change any belief you personally held before writing that book?
I think one thing I learnt about India's past is that we tend to think of India as something separate. When we read Indian history, we just feel, okay, we are separate, and sometimes invaders would come in and conquer parts. That's about what we think about our interaction with the world. When we read maybe, 500 books while writing History of India for Children. I realized how connected India was with the rest of its world throughout, the last 4, 5, 6,000 years of its history. I also, and even before that, there are always people coming in, people going out. People didn't leave India very much because it was so fertile and such a good place to live that my group migrations out did not happen very much. But you did have India traded, and you had knowledge sharing this way and that way, and that is something which did shatter some of our preconceived notions about India.
Okay, ma'am, that kind of personal transformation is really powerful. Sir, You often speak about clarity alongside education. So, when you look back at your own journey of understanding India, what is that one spiritual insight or realization that shaped you personally, and you should feel that, and you feel that students today need it more than ever?
Again, it is a very um, little difficult question because there are so many such insights are there. I'd like to say only one thing: the concept of mindfulness. Because see, based on a recent study by the Johns Hopkins, it was found out that you are living hardly 18% of your life in the moment, and the remaining 82% of the life is going either in the regret of the past or anxieties about the future. So the current youth also is devoting a lot of their time and energy into either the regret of the past or anxieties about the future. But you see that you are not where you are. So I think, living every moment with a sense of gratitude, with a sense of, being fully present there, I think there's one quality which can make a huge difference. And some people call it mindfulness, some people say looking fully in the moment. And when you're doing anything fully involved, then I think the outcomes are very, very good.
So, this insight feels deeply relevant today.
Thank you.
Shruti ma'am, your work is also deeply connected to experience and place. Travel plays a big role in your writing. Museums, heritage, old towns. How does physically being there in places change the way you imagine and write history for young leaders?
That's a very interesting question. And I would say that it actually nowadays it's a very relevant question in today's world where we're talking about everything. We can read about books, we can see documentaries. Now with AI, you might have VR, AR, all of these. What is the point? You can experience something already without being there, right?
Yes.
And as Archana mentioned, we've researched a lot of books to understand to get the context for everything that we're writing about. But actually, if you go to a site and you visit something physically, the value you get and what you're going to pick out of it is just something you won't get even if you watch a documentary. I would say if you watch a very immersive documentary, you might get a little bit more, but you definitely pick up insights and you get a kind of environment in which you see things. And I do think that there is still a very large role for that. So some people say that now with virtual reality coming in, you'll be able to experience something there. But you go there, you experience, even if that happened, something, a ruin from 1,000 years in the past, right? But you'll see how the people are today. You'll see what the context is. You'll see what the weather is when you go. You're going to read about it. That multi-sensory experience that you get, I'm still a firm believer that, it won't become as real to you. It's not possible for something to become as real to you as if you go there and experience it on your by yourself in physical time, as opposed to even watching something about it. And I think that greatly, especially if you're writing fiction, if you're writing fiction and you visited a place, then you're able to describe it because you're immersed in it, right? So I think that I would highly recommend to everybody that wherever you go, don't just get an idea of the markets. Go and check out the cultural sites in person. Even if you want to spend only an hour or two, go and do that. Go and see the sculptures themselves. We always see I'll give you one small example. I was in Sarnath a few years ago, and we see the lion pillar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So uska the capital has been put into the museum at Sarnath. So we have grown up seeing that emblem everywhere, right? It's there in all the government things. It's on your passport. It's on the notes. It's everywhere. When you go and see it, and I had described it in the chapter on Ashoka that we wrote. But when you go and see it and you say, okay, it was polished sandstone, I think. And then you get an idea of how brightly it gleamed. You get an idea of the color. When you walk around it, you see how much bigger it is than what you expected. So now I'll forever remember that lion pillar in a very much more personal way, So I would highly recommend that everybody tries to experience these sort of things in real life as much as possible. So,
We can definitely say that place shape perspective.
yes.
Okay. Another question is, ma'am, writing history also comes with challenges. Is there a figure from the book Women Who Ruled India whose story you feel still hasn't received the depth it deserves?
See, this book was very interesting for me because when I was commissioned, we decided we'll do some 20 to 25 women rulers. So I sat down to make a long list that which 20 should I pick. Made a long list of 100, Now, if I ask anybody, name some women rulers from India, they'll name 4, 5, Razia Sultan, Jhansi Ki Rani, and they'll stop after Ahilya Bai, and then, you know, they'll start searching very hard. Started making that list 100, and I said, how is it that we don't know this? Then you have to realize that India is a continent, it's not a country. So you're not picking a ruler of one kingdom which was in India. There were hundreds of kingdoms in India, and in many of them, over, 100 across 20, 30, 40 centuries, you will have women rulers. So I would say 60%, 70% of the women I've covered, nobody has heard of them. For example, how many people know that there was a dynasty called the Bhaumakara dynasty in Orissa, which had 6 women rulers in the space of maybe 100 years? Even more recently, Bhopal, the kingdom of Bhopal in British colonial times, had 4 consecutive women rulers for 100 years. You had only women rulers in Bhopal from, I think, 1817 till 1926. I think, and they were very good rulers. Bhopal was one of the best governed states. You have somebody like Velu Nachiyar, who was a queen of Shiv Ganga in Tamil Nadu. She's a ruler who actually defeated the British. You have a lot of people who fought bravely, a lot of women, Rani of Kittur, Jhansi Ki Rani, but they didn't win. She won. So many of these stories, I feel they are slowly, they are coming to the fore and the stories are getting shared. But even beyond these, there are so many stories of women. A lot of their history, they were also deliberately, like when Firoz Shah Tughlaq got a list of rulers of Delhi compiled, he removed Razia. Because he didn't even want to acknowledge that there had been women's history is suppressed. So this is something I think now we need to celebrate it.
That was really insightful, ma'am. Talking about the past, I have another question. What is that one misunderstanding about Indian history that you frequently encounter in public conversations?
I think there is, it's a very, very difficult question. But I would like to say that eventually the story we are told is normally one perspective. But history or any human story, any human interaction is far more complex than that. There are many things happening, and for each person there's some good things they did, there are some bad things they did. What we are told was happening at, say, the ruler's level, something else may have been happening at middle level, something else have been happening maybe with the tribals or so many kingdoms. We also when we think, we say, okay, this Gupta kingdom was there, but it's not. You would have an overlord who is there in, say, Patliputra, but you would have had individuals, so many dynasties who are reporting to them. So this simplification, or when you're leaving out all the nuancing, that is something which bothers me. There are so many stories, even in today's India. There's so many. What is Indian? Every state has its own story. Every city has its own story. Every group in the city will have its own story of what is happening. That kind of detailed nuancing, looking at local history, looking at so many other influences, that is something it is important for us not to forget. There is not just one narrative.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for your words. Sir, as student, we often struggle to look beyond marks and careers, uh, and we are trying to find meaning beyond it. So, what is one simple but powerful thought from Indian spiritual tradition that can guide young Indians to live more conscious and purposeful lives?
See, the question is everyone will have their own set of meanings. It also depends on, in what kind of environment you have been raised, what kind of values have been always told to you that these are important. And therefore, your value, as to what you feel will bring money to you and what will bring meaning to you is coming from your past. But, I would still advise my student to look at that from your perspective. Sometimes you have some idea that it is my idea, but actually it is not your idea. Sometimes it is, some idea planted by your mother or father or that neighbor or maybe your other person. So you think it is your idea, but it is not. So in that way, I will very strongly advise you to follow some inner journey, do some little bit of meditation, self-reflection, long walk, sometimes spend in silence, and that will give you an idea that what your heart really wants. So in that way, you shall be in a position to decide how much money you want and why, how much meaning you want and why. And then you can decide about your own meaning in life. And of course, people say that I, me, myself, my family, that is what people say that it is the boundary of their love. But that can still be the center, but not the boundary of your love. The more you expand yourself, more you expand your consciousness, then you will see the whole world is yours. And you also belong to the whole world. So I would like to give this advice.
Thank you, sir. That is something every student needs to hear. Ma'am, we are finally at the concluding question. I would like to ask one final reflective questions to both of you, ma'am. If readers, if young readers take away just one attitude, not a fact, from your books, what would you hope that it is?
Go ahead.
Again, it's a very thought provoking question. I think I would like them to realize that things are never as simple or as one sided as they seem. To repeat, things are complex, things are nuanced. There are good sides to everything, there are bad sides to everything. And one should have the courage to have a clear eyed look at whatever you are seeing and accept the good and the bad of what was there in the past. Look at today, see the good and the bad, and have the courage that this is, use your own mind, have the courage to say, this is good, I need to preserve it, this is bad, I need to get rid of it. And don't just, what history teaches you is that things are always changing. There is nothing which was there, Shashwat at the beginning. Change is the only Shashwat thing in the world. And to accept that and to accept the need for change. That is what I'd like people to take away.
Thank you, ma'am. That was such a beautiful note to end the conversation to, ma'am, please.
Well, I agree with most of what Archana says, so now I'm going to think of something else of my own. I think what I would like readers to take away or to follow something. Actually, let me reframe the question a little bit. Based on my journey of writing these books, which I have deeply researched Indian history and a lot of different stories, what I would like to impart to any readers is that think for yourself, I would say. Think for yourself. It's very easy because time goes by quickly. When you're growing up, you're always being given information. And I think it's easier just out of inertia to just say, okay, that is the information I'm being given, and to just accept it, So I think it's very important to understand that there's another world out there. and you are being shown some slice of it. And I think I would love for people to understand that it's really, really important for them to get a lot of different perspectives and explore for themselves and make up their mind for themselves. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was also a wonderful takeaway so that our students can think about it. On behalf of Sparsh Global Business School, thank you all for sharing your time, wisdom, and experiences so generously. As students, we often search for answers, and today we learned the value of reflection, clarity, and the deeper thinking. To everyone listening, I hope this conversation inspires you to think more thoughtfully in every way possible. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you,
Thanks,
ma'am.
Sparshi.